The Special Investigating Unit has confirmed that it has returned 1.7 billion rand to the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, which says that this breakthrough forms part of the over 2 billion rand it has recovered from universities and TVET colleges. So let's understand exactly what's going on here. We speak now to SIU spokesperson Kaizer Kganyago, who joins us on the line. Mr. Kganyago, good evening to you. Thank you very much for your time. I read your statement with particular interest because what you seem to suggest there is that these recoveries of monies is as a direct result of the recommendations by the SIU that are now being implemented by NSFAS. Expand on that a little bit. What do you mean?
Thank you very much, Cody, and thank you to your viewers. What we are saying in the statement is there are two areas. The one part is the recovery that was done by the SIU directly in all these institutions, including the students that did not qualify. And then the second part of the statement talks about the reforms that are done by NSFAS. They made an announcement that they are now taking our recommendations, what we call the recommendation that were given to them to say they must put structures in place in such a way that they will be in a position to have systems that will generate reports every month to make sure that they are able to follow up on a monthly basis on what is happening with the money that they would have disbursed.
Okay, let's talk then about the institutions and indeed the learners who would have received these monies but were quote-unquote undeserving. Let's start with the institutions. If these monies are being recovered from universities, does that suggest that the universities themselves were doing something wrong? And what is it that they were doing wrong, and are they fixing that?
Yes, obviously there's something wrong that they did, because when they are given monies at the beginning of the financial year or at the beginning of the year, then they are supposed to then allocate those monies to the students. The money that is not allocated can only be with them for that particular year, because then at the end of that financial year, they must reconcile those monies and say this was used, this was not used, and then send it back to NSFAS, which they did not do. Some of them kept the money from 2016 to almost about 5 years in their coffers. Therefore, they just kept it and used it for other things. Therefore, they should have known that this money was not allocated. Therefore, it should go back to NSFAS so that it can be allocated to other students in other universities. And that is why I say that they have done something wrong. They should have known.
Does that suggest criminal conduct on their part?
Not necessarily. Their argument, I think, is to the effect that NSFAS did not also reconcile on their side, and therefore we were not able to know whether our reconciliation and that of their reconciliation is the same, and then we couldn't take it back at that point. Therefore, between themselves and NSFAS, both of them did not do what they are supposed to do, but there's no criminality that is involved, and that is why we said to them, okay, bring back that money, and then we will then take it back to NSFAS, and because we wanted to make sure that the money is brought back to us, and we see that the money is there before it can be taken to NSFAS so that it can be used for what it was intended for.
Finally, these monies also being collected from undeserving students. That's not to suggest that they were the ones who gave monies to themselves. Someone dropped the ball somewhere. How were these monies recovered?
Yes, we had to approach all the undeserving students, and then we also approached their parents to say, but you, at the rate that, the amounts that you have been paid, you are employed and so on, you did not qualify to have your son going to, or your daughter going to school with NSFAS money. And they know that that was true. And in some instances, you'd find that some of them didn't even know. And then we said to them, therefore, you had to pay for these amounts. Therefore, you now want that money is to be brought back to NSFAS because your son or daughter was not deserving. And then most of them signed the acknowledgement of debt, and then they started paying. And that is why the 126 million was collected from that.
Kaizer Kganyago, very clear indeed. Thank you very much for your time tonight, spokesperson for the Special Investigating Unit.